was on my way home when I heard the government announcement that they were calling for a Cod Moratorium. And I couldn't believe my ears what I was hearing. In a sense, I couldn't see shutting down a whole fishery that people's livelihood and people's bread and butter depend on. But the other side of the coin, I knew for some years then, being a buyer and being operating fish plants, I knew the struggle we were having in terms of getting product to keep operating. But I guess it never really hit me till I hit the community and found out that all the boats was tied up and nobody was even out there trying to jig one. Well, 35,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were thrown out of work, and I think women were hit the hardest. People don't realize that 12% of the fishers and over 50% of the plant workers were women. I think the government scrambled to put in place a compensation package without a lot of thought of how it was going to affect people's lives.
People thought that everybody was passed out a check, but it wasn't true. By the time I got a check out of it, I owed it because my light bill and phone bill, everything was piling up, and hardly any groceries in the house. And I had a child going to school at the time, at grade 12, and I hardly could afford to send her to school, and we had to fight for what we got.
Well, the first government program was called INCARP, and then we had tags. But most people called it the package. But both INCARP and tags provided income support, as well as education and retraining.
There's nobody that I know of that wants to be on the tags package. People want to work. I mean, we worked all our life. Well, I worked for 23 years in the plant, and I loved it. Like, you get up in the morning and you got a job to go to, you got this sense of feeling that your life is something, right? But right now, like, people, I mean, they are very concerned, and nobody really knows what their future is going to bring.
You know, even people who did get educated and went away and came back to work in a fish plant. But education was never very much of a big deal. You didn't have to be educated to work on a fish plant. You didn't have to be educated to get into a fishing boat. And I guess people are still wondering, you know, all of a sudden, what's this big thing about retraining? I don't think that people have fully realized the full extent of what's happening to them.
Well, I think women's work in the fishery has never been recognized. And that's probably why the concerns of women in the Cod Moratorium has not been really addressed. They're not being seen as a priority.
We got all these people that's there in Ottawa making decisions on our lives, on our livelihoods. They don't have to worry about if they're going to come home and this is going to be on the table, or if they're going to flick on the light switch and their lights is there, or if they're going to pick up the telephone and the dial tone is there. They don't have these worries, okay? They're not in the bracket that we're in, but they're out there making decisions on how we're going to live, and what they make affects how we go. And I don't think they're doing a very good job with it.
When I worked in the fish plant and ran a fish plant, was totally different from the way I grew up into the fishery. I grew up, I mean, broadside as a child growing up, watched my mom and my grandmother, you know, into the stage, what we call the stage, every day. The men mostly brought the fish ashore, and then the women took over. From splitting it, to washing it, to heading it, salting it, they did everything. To washing it out and drying. The women had a major part of that. There's no such thing as a paycheck. It was all survival. Try to support the family and keep the family intact, right? My mom worked from, 6:30 in the morning till 10 and 11 in the night. You know, it was, you'd almost call it slavery. I saw her work till she fell, almost, basically. She come out of the stage in the night at 10, 11 o'clock and had a wash and had a lunch and kneel down on her knees to say her prayers and fall asleep on her knees, you know. And the next morning they were up and at it again. And up to 4:30 in the mornings trying to get a bit of wash and a bit of clothes clean for the children and one thing or another before they went back in the stage. And that's the way it was, from the month of June up until the month of October. We watched the fishery die here in the Gulf region, and basically it was based on the otter trawler fleet. They fished the winter stock, and it's the only species out there that government allowed, or anybody allowed, to fish during the spawning season. We watched them shovel the spawn off of the deck up to their knees in the dead of winter with a snow shovel. And, you know, if you shovel all the spawn away, what's going to be left there to grow? You know, that's the little fish for the future. We watched people go down from 5.5-inch mesh down to 5 1/4, and even smaller. We watched it cleaned up inshore. We don't talk about the factory freezer trawlers that the FBI and the National Sea put out there and rake the nose and tail of the banks, right? And then the foreign overfishing. There was too much pressure put on the stock, and we lost it. Now, I'm still mayor, I'm back mayor of the community. Times seem to be harder than ever now for little communities, you know, because you're losing a lot of your people. Well, it's been quite a while since I've been here. Used to be a pretty busy spot. At the peak season, I had about 65 workers here, mostly women. Yeah, well, it seems to be all gone now. I don't think this plant will ever open up again. I can't see it, you know, seeing it going back to the way it was. There'll never be a fishery like it was in the past. For me, I don't think I'll ever be back at the fishery because it's the way it was will never be that way again, so therefore I don't see where I'll fit in. It's a bit heart-wrenching to even talk about what happened to your past and your you know, it could have been a future for the rest of my life and for my children and watch our children grow up around us, but we won't see that now. I won't see my grandchildren grow up here. There's nothing here for them. And to see them leave the communities and sell out what they got is pretty sad here, you know. And I think that's the heart-wrenching thing for me is to see that we had such an operation here and now there's nothing. I worked hard in this community, you know, to try to build something for my children and grandchildren, and they've all got up and left. So there's nothing left. Not for me, anyway. And that's the bottom line, I guess, is going to happen to the most of us.
I am the local union president for the FFAW, and the main reason that I did go for it is just to help the workers out. If somebody got a problem, I'd love go sorting it out and seeing what I can do for them. Oh, you're home. How'd you get home?
On the bus.
Did you?
Guess what? I got picked for the volleyball team.
Well, congratulations. I quit high school, and in 1972 I went to work in the plant in Port Union. And I worked there right up until the day that she closed down. I got 2 kids of my own, 2 daughters. I'm a single parent. Oh, it's a fall fair as a fundraiser for Catlona Elementary School. So you can bring...
Nan can make some bread, and she make some jam.
Okay.
You can make some crafts, and I can make some
dishcloths.
something like that.
I'd say that it was about approximately 1,500 people was put out of work from just this plant in Port Union alone. We're talking about plant workers and trawlermen and salary people. And like, we haven't worked one day since the plant closed down in '92, and like, our community is devastation. When we worked the plant, we were working for 10-something an hour. We were getting overtime. We were making good living for our families, and all of a sudden, the plant, like, through no fault of ours, the plant is closed down. All of our jobs are gone, and the first thing we did is we went on UI, so that was one cut. Then we went from UI to hen carp, which they took an average of our last 3 years of UI, so we took another cut. We went from hen carp to tags with another cut. So, I mean, really what happened around here is people just got cut, and they still had the same bills, and it's a drastic change because people just can't make ends meet on the money that they're getting. At first, when the moratorium started, like, it was drastic. Like, the phone was steady rip, people phoning, because at the time, there was a lot of people that had trouble getting on NCARP that worked in the fishery all their life. So, like, under the NCARP program, we did quite a few appeals and was successful in most, because once we went through the appeal stage, we knew if people were qualified. Like, we're talking about people that was in the fishery probably for 15 and 20 years for some reason, fell through the cracks through no fault of their own. Hello, this is Bernice. Yeah, just a second now. I'll see what I got here. As a union executive, we got to really be a jack of all trades, you could call it. Like, we had to be a marriage counsellor and a financial counsellor, and, you know, what we did do, yes, we tried our best to help people out that was in situations, but this was all new to us too. Like a family, for instance, usually the woman be working on one shift and the man be working on another shift, and they wouldn't see each other that much. So when the plant closed down, they were there at all times together, and I guess they start to get on to each other's nerves, because it's like the saying goes, when poverty comes in the door, love goes out the window. Like, we had a lot of families breaking up, some violence, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. I'm looking for Cindy Penny, please, in the tags department. Like, we dealt with a lot of financial problems. Like, I think that was probably one of the biggest. Hi, Cindy. This is Bernie Stoffer calling with the FFAW. I'm calling on behalf of one of my members. Like, from our level, I'd have to say that like, we're almost fighting every day trying to find answers, but we got no more answers now than the day we walked out the door in '92. Like, it's the same old song, and I guess maybe it is, you know, if the fish come back, you'll work, and who knows, only God above, I suppose, that if the fish is ever going to come back, like, nobody haven't got the answers, and I don't know if they will. But I think that what we could look into is multi-species plant. Like, this is what they say is the fishery of the future. And our plant could be a multi-species plant. Like, we didn't do just cod, we did cod, halibut, turbot, grey sole, redfish, flounder, and, like, the list can go on. So, like, maybe we mightn't see the same amount of people back that was here before, but at least it would be a start, and, you know, get some people back to work.
Well, I'm from Gaster, St. Mary's Bay, and I've lived here most of my life, and I went away for a little while to other jobs, but I always came back to my community. And I'm a fisher person. I used to be a plant worker, but now I'm a fisher person since 1989 when my husband died. My 2 children and I decided, well, we had a lot of, my husband had a lot of gear involved, traps and boats, motors, and we just decided that we'd take it on. The girls, they were the ones that encouraged me to really do it, and they were excited about it. And they love it in the boat, and they had their turns going in the boat. And one stayed home and cooked breakfast, and they could see me coming down the shore if I had a load of fish. And so it really worked out good, I must say. And we had a lot of help. Everybody in the community, everybody that fished with me, like, was really, really good. Well, I had 4 years fishing before the moratorium was called, and well, after that, I had a capelin license and a lobster license, but you could not catch cod then after '92. Well, this is Hearn's Cove. We call it Hearn's Cove, and this is where I set one of my traps. And we have to go ashore, like, and put an anchor out there for shore fast for the boat and for the trap. And then we come right out here and put balloons out and everything. And this is where we set our trap, and this is the first one we usually haul in the morning up here. And before the Cod Moratorium, we're doing really good. My traps are in the shade now, since the Cod Moratorium. I wish I was up here today, getting lots of cod. It's so nice to come up here. I love fishing. It was our livelihood, so it was. And we miss it. It was our way of living. And I wish it would open again. I really miss it. People think we're rich on tags, but I can tell you what I'm getting a month, $748 that I'm thankful for, and it's a help to me, but I'm far from being rich. A few years ago, when the moratorium came on, we had no money. It was my daughter's birthday, and she wanted a phone for a room. So I said, okay, Vic, you want a phone? We'll get a phone, but we got to go pick up bottles. So I think she was a bit shy about it because people were watching her going picking up bottles, but I told her, we're going to get the phone and this is it. And we went, and she drove for a while and I picked up the bottles, and I drove for a while and she picked up the bottles, and we just got her phone. I don't care what anybody else thinks. My daughter's gone away now, and my other daughter's going away. And I'm working part-time in town now as a sales lady and cashier to make ends meet, because I can't make ends meet on $748 a month. That's why I drive an hour and a half to town. I leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning. I probably won't get back no more till 8 or 9 in the nighttime. When the moratorium came into effect after a couple of years, I was wondering, am I going to be left in the fishery? And I said, this is a good opportunity for me now to take a course, just in case I'm not. So I took a course at Cabot, Floral Arrangements. And I go on the beach and I pick up my driftwood. I'm a real beachcomber. If I can get a bit of money somewhere, I probably will start flower arrangement or a flower shop or whatever. It's a lovely place. It's a nice, clean place, and people are friendly. Everybody's friendly, and it's just atmosphere, and your culture's here, and I grow my vegetables, and God, I'd be lost if I didn't have a vegetable garden. It's my home, and I can't afford to move somewhere else and pay rent somewhere else and try to keep up a home in St. Mary's Bay. I can't let my home fall down, and after we're working and so hard to get it, no, I'm not going to be uprooted. I don't care who tries to do it. They're not going to uproot me. That's my home, and that's where I'm staying, and that's where I'm going to die, right here.
When our communities was hit so hard by the Cod Moratorium, and most of the people that was in our plants was hard workers and very good workers with their hands. There was never a challenge to them to make a living or put bread and butter on the table. But when they found themselves without a job and the fishery closed down, a lot of people looked at themselves and said, my God, where do I go from here? There's no way for me to make a living. I got no education. We're averaging a 43% literacy rate in coastal Labrador, and that's a high rate. And then government said to people, you've got to go back to school and do training. What I found was the people that was forced back into the classrooms was people who never had a level 1, a lot of them, and was tried to be fitted into level 2, which was grade 8 or grade 9, right? And I found people going more to the hospital, women with high blood pressure, women home all night long, up, couldn't sleep, come back the next morning, talk about how they were up all night long, worrying about the fractions they couldn't do and all this kind of stuff. That drove me just right over the edge because I knew somebody was doing wrong to people. You see, what totally ticked me off was the government looked at it and said, the minute they had this money, all this money was approved by the federal government for INCARP and tags and what have you, everybody pounced on that tags dollar. I mean, all the institutions, the education institutions, they set up new schools all over this damn province and you know, to capitalize on that dollar. They never put it really where it was needed at, and that was in the people that was basically affected at the level 1 level. The people that was hands-on in the fish plants, they never got the benefits. And that's what's frustrating for people even today. With it, most of it all gone and one thing or another, where did it go to? There's more infrastructure, there's more equipment, there's more computers and sewing machines and everything around this province stored away by the HRDCs and the colleges and the trade schools than they'll ever be used. And the people that really needed it never got it.
Up here we got my brother Phil in a beige color house, the big one there. And right across the road from him is Vince's house. And as you come down here, there is Albert's house. That's my sister Teresa's house right there. And as you come across from that, there is Mick's house. And then there's Roy's house up behind that, the green one. And behind him is me. And that's my brother Don's house right there with the patio on back. And over here is my parents. The twine needles, I remember these, Dad.
Yeah, I never used to make them.
I remember them quite well.
Yes,
In the
I
night
do.
time, I used to be sitting down and Dad would be
Yeah,
working
yeah.
away at the twine.
Yeah, I used to make the needles. Couldn't
I
afford
was
it.
born here in St. Mary's Bay and lived here all my life. I'm the youngest of 12 children. My father was a fisherman, my mother was a homemaker.
There's a turn this here.
I went to school here in the same community that I live in. And when I finished school, I had big ideas that I wanted to be a nurse. So I applied for nursing school, and in the process of waiting for my application to be processed, I went to work on the fish plant. Oh my goodness, Mom, isn't that beautiful?
Oh yeah, that's where is that where the ladies used to be cutting up all the fish?
That's right, that's where Mom used to work, yeah. Making the hay, I remember doing that quite well.
I dare say.
Beautiful. Then after I met John in the plant, well, we both were working at the fish plant at the time. And then we just decided to get married, and we started at our house and had a couple of kids, and it just never was an issue then of whether I needed education or not. Come on. Let's go. Come on, Nikki. Come on. After the first year of the moratorium, they started talking about retraining the people on the tags program. Come here. I really wanted to do it. I said, this is the only chance in my lifetime I'll ever get to go back to school. So we discussed it a little bit, and John said, yes, go for it. So I called the tags people and told them I wanted to retrain. At first, their idea of retraining was a 9 or 10 month course. Go in and be a nursing assistant or a cosmetology or a carpenter or something with 9 or 10 more, months of training. I wanted to be a nurse. So when I approached them at first, they were quite hesitant. They named up, a lot of things that I could do besides nursing. Up until September of when I started school, I still hadn't gotten a definite answer from tags. So while I was in for my interview at the Grace, and I told her I was, a tags recipient and planning on returning to school, she says, yeah, we had a guy here last year came into the tags program. Uh-oh, just the food I needed for thought. So I came back and went back to the tags people and say, look, you've already funded somebody, and what's the problem? You're not funding me. So it was only a matter of days. Then they called me up and said, yeah, we're going to fund you.
You tie this to your one side of this post, and then you want sort of about that height from the ground for your rabbit.
Throughout the time I was in nursing school, the 3 years I was in nursing school, along with taking care of the kids full time,
Yeah.
John went back to school at ABA here in St. Vincent's.
Put this in through.
What's the bigger than that? He wants his head to go in.
I would not have managed to do it without him. I mean, he's been really good to the kids, and he always gave me time and space on the weekends to study.
And you can tell me.
He's always been there.
Then Benny comes along, and he gets his hand in, and you kill him.
There were various people in the community who supported what I did, but there were people in the community who, came up to me and said, how can you go and leave your kids for a whole week and then come home and only home on the weekends? And, how is this going to affect their schoolwork? Who does their homework with them? And see, it's from where I stand, What I think happened is a lot of those women, if their husbands wanted to go to school, it was fine. If they wanted to leave and go away to work for 6 months, that was fine. There was nothing at all about it. It's sort of a sexist thing, that if women leave and go away for 6 months or go away to school, that they weren't being good parents, a good mother. And I thought, you know, that it's just not fair.
Dad, are these Patrick berries?
Yes, Megan, they're parish bears. I have maize bears here. You put them in Mom's bucket.
I think the government really want to get people into the urban area. There's no work where you are. Why aren't you after moving? Both my parents are elderly, and like they depend on me a great deal, and even weren't wondering what's going to happen to them if I do decide to leave St. Mary's Bay. You know, who's going to take care of them? My kids were scared we were going to move. Well, Corey put it really on the table. I'm not moving. Well, I completed my RN in June. I wrote my RNs in August. You know, I've tried to get work. There's just none available. And I thought, well, why not go back and do my BN? So I've started on it now. I'm doing it all by correspondence so I can be home. It's a matter of discipline, really. You know, it's a choice between whether I, you know, hang it to laundry or do my philosophy. After that, ideally, I would get a job here in my own community or in a neighboring community. Public health nursing, something along that line. If, however, that doesn't materialize and it doesn't happen, well, I can't see anything, only move out of my community. But, you know, right now I just see things in a short time frame. Like I said, my life's been on hold since the moratorium, and it still is, so. I look at the moratorium, there's so many mixed feelings I have. If I can get my goals realized and get a job, it'll be a chance of a lifetime for me to get a career that I otherwise would not have even thought about. Although there are times I wonder if the plant opened, I think maybe I would go back. I think I would. If I thought I'd have the kind of lifestyle I had before the moratorium, where I went to work and my husband went to work and we came home and, you know, where you knew your next check was coming from. It was very comforting to know that.
You know, I've been around these problems, and I've been around Atlantic Canada since the time of the moratorium started, in different women's conferences and one thing another, and it's constant battle all over. Women have got the short end of the stick. Women being questioned right to the hills. Their positions, why they were, what kind of boats were they into, people's, women's full-time license being taken away from them, and all this type of thing. That never happened. That never happened to me, and you don't hear those stories. But in Atlantic Canada, from PEI to the Bay of Fundy, right down to the Newfoundland coast, were questioned today if we're women and we're in the fishery. I feel it's a lot of it is the mentality of the leaders of our country and our provinces who's running us, and the bureaucratic system. They perceive women as not being a part of the fishery, as that wasn't their job. And it was only just, people just got women in there, you know, just to get the stamps and reap the benefits and all this. I don't think they saw women as being really hands-on fisher people or plant workers.
Basically, what I do with the pots is I'll haul them over, I'll take them and just check and make sure that none of the meshes are broken away from the boards, and that none of these boards are broken. Same thing with the sides. If any of them is broken, well, they got to be mended. Checks to make sure the nail is good and is sturdy. The ropes are usually taken off and put in just before we get ready to throw them overboard. You check to make sure that none of the lats has been broken, because if they are, they got to be fixed. And also on the, you check the bottom and make sure none of these lats are broken, and if there's not enough weight in them, well, more got to be put, right? And that's basically what I do when we're finished lobster fishing, right? We bring them in, and my job do be to haul them over. We don't have a good lobster season, not really, anyway. The lobsters are down, but we got a lot of fishermen at it, too. What else are they going to do? You know, people that's 35 to 45, 50 years old, they're too young to retire. Too old, they figure, to be retrained. So they went at the lobsters, and they went at the lump fishing, they went at the bait fishing. Because there's no cod. You're not allowed to codfish. Well, I started out with the lobster pots and the lump nets, okay? And then when it came to the hook and line fishery, I've done everything there with regards to sticking the gear up and putting the hooks on, and from that baiting it and setting it, right? Well, I don't go out and sit, but I have been out when the gear's been set. But when they shut the fishery down, gear baiting was what I was doing at that time, right? Oh, yeah, I loved it. Yeah, you had a stage full of men who always had nice jokes, and they were fun to be around. When the fishing season was over, I drew my unemployment the same as everyone else. When I applied for tags, I had a unique case. I was the only one on the all of the southwest coast that was doing what I was doing. So I guess it just wasn't recognized. Whereas a man, they're all doing the same thing that I was doing. Nothing any different. And every one of them got their tags. But me, no. They sent me out a letter in December the 2nd or the 3rd saying I qualified, and it was a matter of a week, and I had the money. And on December the 12th, I got another letter saying I was going to be terminated, along with 80 other women that was from the Northern Peninsula. They said that it was not fishery related what work I had done, okay? But I'd cry discrimination. I would, right? And old to me word. But they'll come up with something else and say, oh, no, it's not discrimination. It's just you didn't fit the criteria. You know, I had to go through the appeal system, right? I went in, and he said who he was, and I said who I was, and I asked him a few questions, and I wanted to know just how much he knew about the fishery in this area, and where things have changed drastically, right? Where long liners used to go out, and they'd have 7 men on their boat, and 5 of those men, all they did was bait gear. So with the decline in stocks, the bigger boats went to small boats, the fishermen did, okay, because it just wasn't feasible. The money wasn't there, they were going in the hole. So they went to small boats, and it's impossible to bait a tub of gear in a speedboat. So you were put in bait sheds. And, you know, I explained all this out to him. Oh, yes, he knew it all. And he didn't do a very good job on my behalf, but he also didn't do it on any of the people there because none of them qualified. And like I said before, it was basically all women. So maybe they got a thing against women. Who knows?
Sure get mad today? Oh boy.
Things haven't been too bad, you know. I haven't lost lights, I haven't lost the phone, we haven't lost anything, right? We've been able to stay afloat. And it seems like things has gotten easier now. I guess it was the time to adjust straight to the one check and what have you. 2 checks was a lot nicer to have coming in. But we adjusted and settled into it.
Not too bad.
See you later. Come home after school down to Nan's.
You ask those people that's out there making these decisions, well, what is the future of the fishery when this moratorium is over? And the funny thing is, nobody knows. They can't tell you. You can't take people's lives and just play games with them, you know, and say, okay, well, we're finished with this group of people, and so we'll buy them out and squeeze them out, and then they're gone. So you're back into you. It's all a big money scam. I think big companies is running it all. Gosh, it's so hard to say what I think. There's so much I think. I think you're going to see more women going in boats with their husbands, okay? It makes more sense. Why pay somebody $100 a week or $200 a week or $300 a week if you can keep it in your family? I much prefer the money staying in the family, but it's not saying all women feel that way. Oh, I'll be aboard the boat with Kelly. Definitely, yeah. I don't see why not. You're your own boss. Hey, nobody's telling you got to be here at a certain time. We can get up and we can go out and we can do our thing. No questions asked. And it's nice.
I do have high hopes that women is going to be stronger than ever in the fishery. I think that women have saw what happened to them and happened to a lot of their families because of this whole downturn in the fishery. And because of that, I think you're going to find women in more higher, powerful roles. From some of the action and some of the things that have been happening around these problems, I know that women are stronger than ever before. And I think this problems as Newfoundland and Labrador, I think we got a lot to be proud of, and that's why we should. I don't think we should let go that easy. Some people is giving in and moving away, and I'm prepared to sit and fight, I think, and nail and toot until it's all. I don't know if I'll pay off in the end, but I think we got a lot to hold fast to.